Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here. I see that my lobbying at the new attendees session really worked. Thank you, new attendees, for being here. So we have hyped this up, and let's get going. So what are we doing here? My name is Wanda Marsalik. My pronouns are they, them. That's really only important if you're talking about me, right? So just wanted to share that in case you do go and say, what were they talking about? Or well, so just wanted to get that out of there. Okay, so my name is Wanda Marsalik. I'm at the University of Minnesota. I'm here today with Sophia Lafferty-Hess from Duke University. Jennifer Moore from Washington University in St. Louis was unable to make it today. We found out yesterday morning. So please share grace with us. We're doing our best up here. So, but we're going to be talking to you about building a community of people working with data. This is an IMLS funded project through the Data Curation Network. Megan, Michaela, and Seth also worked really hard on this project, and so we want to make sure that they are getting credit for that too. The DCN has been holding a book club for the last several weeks. We're reading Data Feminism. We read a chapter a week, and then we talk about it, how we can insert some of that into our own practices, as well as the Data Curation Network. And so bear with me while I read a little bit, just a little bit, but I think it's really going to set us up here for the rest of the talk. And can everyone hear me? Just want to okay, great. Thanks. Data feminism can help to remind us that before there are data, there are people. People who offer up their experience to be counted and analyzed. People who perform that counting and analysis. People who visualize the data and promote the findings of any particular project. And people who use the product in the end. There are also always people who go uncounted, for better or for worse. And there are problems that cannot be represented or addressed by data alone. Data feminism consists of asking who questions about data science. Who does the work? And then also who is pushed out? Who benefits? And who is neglected or harmed? Whose priorities get turned into products? And who is overlooked? These questions are relevant at the level of individuals and organizations and are absolutely essential at the level of society. The current answer to most of these questions, the who does the work, who benefits, and whose priorities get turned into products, are overwhelmingly people from dominant groups. And so the DCN is made up of many people, and we've been trying to talk to you all for the last several CNIs. And so when we are striking out, we look to see what the others are talking about, and we overwhelmingly saw a lot of AI. So we've integrated AI into this presentation a bit. So we wanted to ask AI how useful it is for data curation, as well as creating a curriculum to train and build up data curators. And it is useful because it says so, right? So we asked it, what is data curation? And it tells us that data curation refers to the process of organizing, managing, this is right. Okay, managing and maintaining data to ensure it is accurate, accessible, and usable over time. We don't disagree. We asked, are you good at data curation? And it said, I can definitely help. While I don't physically manage or store data myself, I can guide you through the process. Are you the best resource for it? I can be a very useful resource for data curation. In short, I'm a great resource for understanding, analyzing, and organizing data, but large-scale physical data management, you may need additional tools or human expertise. Thank you. There's a lot of people in here with a lot of power, and well, you do have power. You're at this talk, and other folks that are assistant librarians and like myself, don't necessarily get to be here. And so we just want to share what we're working with and share that to you. share that with you. And so then we asked AI, are you good at creating curricula for data curation? And it says, yes, I can assist, but check this resource out. The Data Curation Network offered a curated workshop. Blah, blah, blah. This curriculum is structured around the curated steps and has been utilized to enhance data curation competencies. Full disclosure, we did this, I think, we asked it last month, and we asked it on one computer. We have not asked with different IP addresses. We don't know if it's because folks in the DCN are looking up DCN resources. We don't know. But maybe you want to go back and check and see what it says on your laptops or when you work with AI. We then asked, what is the value of a human data curator? A human data curator plays a pivotal role. Human data curators add significant value. And then we asked, what is the value in human-centered data curation training curricula? Human-centered data curation training curricula offer significant value by tailoring educational content to the nuanced needs of specific disciplines and data types. Okay, so how may data curators or the DCN use AI? So this is us now. We're no longer talking to the AI, but this is how we think we can use AI, or potentially. So you're going to hear about the curated steps in a bit, but just to get you started, we could use AI for the first step, the C, the check step, to familiarize ourselves with formats in a data package. If we're not aware of them, we could ask AI. For understanding the data, we could familiarize ourselves with new topics. We could use small bits of code into it, and there will be a but in a moment. I'll get back to that. Reaching out to the researcher to request information, we could ask AI to help us write a message. We could use AI to help augment the metadata. It could help us find metadata standards for a given discipline area. For transforming file formats, we could ask what open file types might be appropriate. For the E for evaluating, we're not gonna use that help. We're evaluating for fairness and even care, and so we are going to just take a break from that, and thank you, but no thanks. And then for documenting all that we've done, we could leverage project management tools with AI functionality. We could. Here are some things that we will not be using AI with. Our tagline for the DCN, or the Data Curation Network, is ethical, reusable, and better. We cannot feed data sets into AI. It's not our data. It's not what its purpose was. We can maybe put pieces in to find out if there are errors or something like that, or what is supposed to be, but we will never put in a full code because we didn't create it. It's not ours to share with AI. And we will also not be using it around fair and care. Around reusability, even when we take an assist, we will always evaluate the data with human eyes. And because we are ethical, reusable, and which makes it better, community development through community engagement and community learning. Again, the people. People are essential. Connected people are a force. I think we can see that from all of the folks that are attending this today and tomorrow. How many folks are familiar with the Data Curation Network? Okay, cool, all right. Thank you. But for those of you that are not, I would like to just share a little bit. The Data Curation Network, or the DCN, is a community-led network of curators advancing open research by making data more ethical, reusable, and understandable. We are an active community of data stewards and curation practitioners who share knowledge and time to collaboratively curate research outputs and advance the data curation profession. The DCN has been active since 2016 and officially launched as a member-funded organization in July of 2021. And the initial phase was generously funded by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. In particular, the DCN collaborates to curate data sets, share expertise and resources, offer education and professional development opportunities to the wider research community, and advocate for the role of data curators and information professionals. In this way, we help ensure that data shared by researchers at our institutions is more findable, accessible, and reusable. Lastly, the DCN is actively involved in and working towards how to improve ethics, and not just the data sets we curate and help share, but also our own work. We examine how we can make our community more inviting and inclusive, how our curation practices can be more equitable. The DCN depends upon developing and sustaining a community of highly collaborative members that are exceedingly invested and motivated in the success of the network, are deeply trusting of each other, and hold each other accountable. So why collaboration matters? The energy of an aha moment. Building off of each other's ideas, we're stronger together. Contextual problem solving and the diversity of experience. Why gathering matters and what's lost without gathering? When we're gathering, we engage without distraction. We understand the whole individual. We're here to address nuances, to build long-lasting relationships, and keep each other accountable. Sophia?
I feel like it's always hard to follow Wanda. I have to do it a lot when we're teaching workshops together. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the broader DCN program, how we bring people together that care for data, how we leverage appropriate technology, and then I'm going to transition to that specific project that Wanda was talking about that we want to highlight around some of our new education initiatives and things we're doing. So what does the DCN do? We've kind of been like giving you a broad understanding, but what specifically? So we do curation, and I'm going to show a little bit more about our curation workflow in just a moment. We engage in education, we develop primers, both of those I'll talk more about. We have interest groups. So again, we like to bring people together to talk about topics of interest. So that might be, we have a big data interest group. That's actually open to the public, so anyone can join that interest group. We have one on human subjects and working with sensitive data, racial justice, one on institutional communication and outreach. And then we do a lot around, again, cultivating our community. So we have weekly curator check-ins. We have peer compares, which are pretty cool, where people will like show their repository system, talk about the pain points, really kind of honest conversations. And then we do have an annual meeting every year where people come together to share and network and learn. So again, this is one of the big things that the DCN provides to the members, and this is sharing our expertise, right? So when you join the DCN, and this is not like a plug for the DCN, just so that you know, for the people that are in the audience and are not familiar, what you can do is you can harness the expertise of over 50 different curators working at other institutions. So I'm going to use Duke as an example. I'm from Duke. I'm a curator, and I just submitted a data set 2 weeks ago. So what happens on the left-hand side of the screen, yes, a researcher submits a data set to me, and then that curation team and I decide, do I have the expertise to curate that data set? And if I say no, then I can decide to submit the data set to the DCN. We have a coordinator who then matches that data set to our curator pool and says, oh, Wanda has that expertise in the geo package database, which is what I didn't have any expertise in. So Wanda would say, yes, I do have availability. They would then curate the data set according to our curated steps, which I'll show more about in a minute, send me the recommendations, and then I would interface with our researcher, right? Because it's really important for me to have that relationship with our researchers where they would make those changes, potentially based on our recommendations. So we've been talking about the curated steps, but to walk through them just in a little bit more detail, because they're really essential to our workflow within the DCN and our training programs. So essentially, curated stands for check files and read documentation. So that's really when you're getting an idea of the scale and the scope of the data set, as well as looking for any ethical red flags. You then move on to understanding the data. So this is when you're digging more deeply. You're doing your QA, your QC, you're reading through the documentation. After you do the check and the understand step, that's when you're going on and you're going back to the researcher and requesting those changes or missing information. After you have a conversation with the researcher, you might be augmenting the data set or the metadata for things like better findability or discoverability. We might transform file formats for reuse, so going from proprietary to more open standard file formats. And then we're doing that overall evaluation against the fairness criteria. Throughout this process, we're documenting our curation activities. So I like to think about the curated steps. It's a model, it's a workflow, it's also a conceptual model, right? Because it's not always linear like this. You might jump back and forth between different steps, but it's a nice way to think about what curation looks like in practice. One of the other things that we've created within the DCN are called data curation primers. So these are essentially quick start or how-to manuals on how to curate a specific file format, curation topic, or disciplinary data type. So here I have examples of an accessibility data primer and ArcGIS. So these are created by volunteers. They are peer-reviewed before going to publication. And if you're interested, all of them are openly available under a CC BY license. You can just go to the DCN website. They're all hosted on the DCN GitHub, as well as an archive version at the University of Minnesota repository to have that. I'll just say, hearing that plenary, I really geeked out. And so we have them preserved, right? Because we want to make sure we have those preserved and citable. All right, so moving on to education and our training. As we said, we believe that curation, education, and training is really important. So this is something that the DCN's been focusing on since 2017. What I like to think of the first phase of our education program, this was initially funded by an Institute of Museum and Library Services grant that was led up by Cynthia Hudson-Batali, who is here today, not in this room, but she did a fabulous job. And this workshop and training is really structured around that curated workflow and teaching new data curators, how do I curate in practice? We have hands-on activities with real-world data sets. We have a lot of peer-to-peer discussions. And then there's also the opportunity to have a capstone where you go out and actually come together with a group and develop one of those primers. So these workshops have primarily been 1.5 days in person, but we've more recently developed a more abbreviated 3-hour-long workshop that we've done in person and virtual. And we are happy to say we've gotten to engage with and train more than 250 individuals. And these are just pictures of the people, because we like pictures of people. Okay, so phase 2, and this is the newer project that we really wanted to share out about. This was also funded by an IMLS grant, a pilot planning project. And what we wanted to do is expand our curriculum for some specialized data types. So we were looking at having new curriculum for geospatial data, scientific images, code, and simulations. And then we also had a goal of considering the ethical, equitable, and accessible considerations for those data types. Another picture of people that were involved in this project by a big squid. It's in DC. Okay, so what was our approach? We wanted to, again, bring people together for a shared goal of creating this curriculum. So what we did is we created cohorts. So we had an open call that we wanted people that were interested or had expertise with these data types. We really wanted to bring together those different voices. So we had, a code, geospatial, simulations, and images cohort. But one of the things that I thought was effective is we also had a mentor for each of the cohorts. So they helped to kind of guide the process, and they were part of our project design team. So what's nice about that is that then you kind of got an idea of what was going on across the different cohorts. So they weren't just working in isolation. And then we also had an advisory board. Okay, so this is the names of all the people that were in the instructional cohorts. Sometimes when I do this talk, I try to really, really quickly name all of them because they were so important, and without this project, they would not have been possible. But I'm already running out of time, so I'm not going to do that right now. But I did want to mention that, again, this idea of intersectional voices. While a lot of these people are librarians, data curators working within academic libraries or settings, we did have individuals from specialized government-sponsored repositories. We had nonprofits. We actually had a faculty member and researcher that wanted to be part of the project. So we did have a really nice kind of cross-section of different perspectives. So what was our approach to curriculum development? So we held a kickoff meeting first. We thought this was really important to bring everybody together in person to establish relationships and a shared understanding of our goals. People then went off virtually, worked on their curriculum development. We then did a peer review. So each of the data types essentially got to peer review another data type. but every data type was reviewed by all the others. So that was confusing how I said that. Code was reviewed by geospatial data, scientific images, and simulations. So what was nice about this is that you really had some cross-learning, right? So every cohort got to see what the other cohorts were creating. And we really got good feedback that people really appreciated that process. We then held a pilot workshop in fall 2023. We brought together 35 different we had 15 people that were just from the archives and library community that applied to come to the workshop. And then all the cohort members also came as both instructors as well as learners. Each cohort, we gave them about 2.5 hours, 3 hours to test any of the materials of their choosing. And then we did have feedback to refine those materials. As far as feedback, we really thought it was important to listen to people and get feedback as much as possible to engage in continuous learning, and not just feedback on the actual content, but also on our own process. So as I said, this was a pilot. We had not done something like this before, so we really wanted to hear from people about what they thought worked well or what didn't. So I already talked about the peer review. We also did at the pilot workshop, we went old school and we did paper surveys after each module because we wanted to make sure we had 100% response rate, which we did get. And also we wanted it to be fresh on their minds, right? And then we digitized that and gave it out to the individual cohorts. We did a final survey for the pilot workshop participants. And then we also did a feedback survey to the cohorts. So from this feedback, we obviously got some nice graphs that we didn't have the space to include today on people were satisfied. They thought they learned about data curation. It was great. But really the depth of knowledge that we gained came from the qualitative comments and the feedback that we got there. So I'm just going to read really quickly this one quote because it's very nice. It makes me feel good. For me, this workshop showcased the DCN's unique position and ability to bring experienced practitioners and novice curators together in a joint learning experience and to advance the tools, techniques, and principles of data curation. It's very nice. The next two are more constructive, which we really, really appreciated that, and even more so than the very nice quotes. So one of the things we heard from almost all the participants from the pilot workshop is 2.5 hours is not enough time to cover really complex data types like geospatial data. So what we're going to do for our next iteration, and we are having another iteration of these workshops, is we're going to pair two data types together. So we're going to do code and simulations and geospatial data and scientific images over a 1.5 to 2 day workshop. So we're going to give a lot more space for active learning, for hands-on, for peer-to-peer discussions. One of the other things we heard from the cohorts is that they could have benefited from a little bit more communication on, what documents we wanted when and what the structure of those things were. We wanted to give space for creativity and flexibility, but we heard that more scaffolding of the deliverables, and as we know, more communication is often valued. So these are some of the key things that we learned from our feedback. I'm now going to turn it back over to Wanda to talk about some of our other reflections and kind of impacts.
Sophia, what goes around comes around, right? Now I'm up after you. So, all right. So for let's see, for all of this to work, we wanted to not only build relationships, but also nurture a supportive team dynamics that values a diversity of opinions, perspectives within and between the cohorts, allow sharing of experiences, challenges, pain points regarding curation amongst participants. So at our first meeting, we had cohorts, groups, teams. I'm using that term interchangeably. We had folks create mascots and building shared measures of success. We have Pixie the platypus here for scientific images and Globy for geospatial. We shared meals and in-person time. We're community building. We're listening to different voices and facilitation by various mentors. We had a lot of ongoing communication with Slack. As many folks who are using Slack, that sometimes it's easier to just chat someone real quick. And with everyone across the United States, it was easier to use Slack in the DCN Slack than to be emailing folks. So we really got that was a really great tool that we were able to use. We were building and nurturing trust, and we were practicing radical interdependence. The continued viability of the DCN depends on each individual member feeling comfortable enough to bring their most authentic self to the network. That was a quote from the Art, Science, and Magic of the Data Curation Network. We're also looking at humility, intuition, and vulnerability, and we're centering humanity. So as Sophia said, the summer, spring and summer, as of still, we are
Right now.
right now we are we are offering series of training series in partnership with NIH. The first cohorts will be simulation and code, where I am the mentor for that, as well as an instructor. And then I think in June, we will have geospatial and scientific images working together. We think that those will partner nicely, especially for folks, since NIH is kind of sponsoring that, we wanted to meet their community needs as well. The DCN is also a thriving community of practice in which members can exchange information and learn from one another. We have all of our education materials openly available, and we want everyone to use them. Sometimes we even think that researchers could benefit from these, and so please share them out with whoever you think can use them, or delegate someone else to share them out. DCN members help shape the future of data curation by developing community-oriented educational resources, offering professional development opportunities inside and outside of the DCN. And we're continuing to grow. We were a Brady Bunch of 6, and now we are a very extended family of 25 institutions. So we just we're growing, and that means more expertise, more lenses, more experiences that we're able to bring together, and then also build up the data curation field. So we're lifting each other up, really. And our primer collection is growing, including an AI data curation primer that this group formed at the last NIH Curated Fundamentals workshop last month, actually. So bringing it back to those AI responses and data feminism, human data curators add significant value in human design data curation training curricula, does many things, including making space for people working with data and making them well prepared and supported. There's a lot of visible and invisible labor in data working, including AI. We know who is training it. Our volunteer likes, thumbs up, and even our journal articles. But we are working towards a more sustainable and socially just community of practice. Data feminism helps make the labor visible so that it can be recognized and valued. We have some references and many, many acknowledgments that we are happy to include here because of that's why we're here. And we don't have a questions slide, but we could take questions. Thank you.
Samuel from Cornell. You anticipated my question a little bit in your second last slide, but has there been any work on producing versions of the data primers for the researchers themselves? And I think that could be a very interesting sort of venue for discussion where there might be learning in both directions.
I don't think that's working. So that has most definitely been an ongoing conversation as a growth area. I'm part of the DCN education. I'm actually the chair of the DCN education committee. And I think one of the challenges there is it's just a scalability question, right? And a audience question. So I think that the primers could already be useful to researchers, but the way we talk about them, right, is for curators that are having data come into the repository. So I think that would be a great way to partner with researchers themselves that are working on the community with those data types and see if they would like to create some primers. But I think it's a great point. We do see it as one of the places that we should be growing into, but just have not gotten to that yet. So, but maybe now our capacity is growing, more and more institutions, maybe there's more people that would like to volunteer to do that.
Hello, my name is John Borwick. I'm from the University of Washington. I really appreciate your sharing kind of the structure and approach to the group. I think about in like lean manufacturing, there's this concept that effective problem solving comes from a culture of safety and trust. Right now, I'm thinking a lot about systems and how they can be disrupted through chaos or bad actors, particularly how one bad actor can potentially suck all the energy out of the room, right? If you have like a half-day session and so I'm just curious with respect to kind of protocols and ensuring like effective engagement where people are really appreciating one another, like what thought you might have to, how to be able to be resilient in the face of a bad actor or someone that maybe is just so fundamentally at odds with the approach that it kind of sucks the air out of the room. I appreciate any perspective you have on that. Thank you.
Can I just ask a little bit? Do you mean people that are using these resources or people that are joining the projects and the trainings and workshops?
The latter.
Okay. We do have folks apply to participate in these, and we ask them how this will benefit them personally in their job, how it will benefit their institution, and then we have been asking them what their lens, their situational, what their intersections, and how that can contribute to the program. And so we do that, as you're aware, the library world is small, the data world is smaller, or data curation world is a little bit smaller. And so people know people, and we're trying. I don't think we've had a situation yet where we have come into conflict. So great question.
Yeah,
it's something
so
for us to be thinking about.
Hopefully it will never happen. It's just been front of mind recently. So I appreciate everything you're sharing around kind of building communities. It's just appreciate thinking about it in a proactive manner.
Yeah, I think the only other thing too, every workshop we start out with a code of conduct, and we not only say like, this is our code of conduct, but we have a slide that says, this is how you kind of operationalize a code of conduct as far as like listening to other voices, being respectful of individuals. So we try to surface that at least in our workshops and training early on. And as Wanda said, we've been lucky that all the workshops that I've at least taught, we haven't had that situation of a bad actor that kind of sidetracks the conversation or is such a strong voice that it doesn't make space for other voices. And so I think that's one approach that I've appreciated, not just having this big code of conduct, but saying, how do you actually engage in that in a meaningful way? I think in smaller groups, like I was looking at Wanda a little bit, because as a mentor, that can also be a challenge where you have one kind of dominant voice. And I think that can be more difficult. The one other thing we did do at the kickoff meeting is we had a facilitator. So we actually brought in a facilitator to lead that meeting instead of it just being like me up there, right? Because I'm not a skilled facilitator. And that helped a lot too, because I think then you can have somebody that can like redirect when that's necessary. Thanks.
Just wanted to, great project. Awesome. I was just wanting to invite you to talk about where you are thinking about going with this next. And if you have,
That's kind of sad, Mark. I actually was gonna say that, and then I felt like I was running out of time. We had put in a grant application with IMLS for an implementation where we had been hoping to offer more of these workshops at scale. We were hoping to build out some of our like kind of community-based model, maybe make more like self-guided online modules. And obviously with the state of the world right now and what's happened with IMLS, we're afraid that's probably not going to be a reality. So now I think we're kind of going back to the drawing board to say like, well, what can we do if we don't get more funding, right? Like what can we just do as the DCN without support from IMLS? That money was so important for like doing the kickoff meeting, bringing the people together. We can't necessarily do that just with DCN resources, but I think there are still opportunities that we're gonna think about. So, but yeah, we had plans, and now we're gonna have to go back and see what are some other plans we can do without more funding.
I think there's lots of options. I don't think you should give up.
Okay, there's other funders to look at too, right? There's other places to look. So we're just I think we're kind of at the stop and reassess and figure out where we go from here. But we're very thankful to the NIH. Right now, the next 2 workshops are going forward, and those are a great kind of pilot for our next idea of like 2 data types together and making more space. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, this is Jackson Huang from Educopia. I was actually curious to hear a little bit more about your coordinator and governance model, especially as you scaled up from 6 to 25 institutions. Like, do you have a full-time coordinator to kind of keep the, work moving? Do you have like a part-time? Is it like part of one of your jobs? I'm just kind of curious about, aside from the actual work of making the primers and the workshops, kind of the work of keeping the network running.
Do you want to take that? Do you want me to take that? Okay. We do have a full-time staff person. Recently, they've taken a position, a great opportunity came up for them. And so we have an interim director, but we've also hired through another grant, a project, someone to kind of keep the project on track. And so we're all kind of putting in some effort towards this right now. We're in a time of change. But we do have a couple of full-time, on a good day, we have a couple of full-time people. Part of the agreement for the DCN is you do have to provide curators so we can distribute the work, as well as people to give a percentage of their time. It's just small, like 1%, 2%, 3%, if that. And so I'm just, yeah. Do you want to?
I'll say, I think one other thing is that there was a lot of work that went into developing, like I said, a governance board. So we have like within the DCN, every member institution has an institutional representative that sits on the governance board, and then we have an executive committee. So there is kind of an organizational structure where we'd had a director that was doing more of that coordination and community building that we hope will be, filling that position. Now it's interim, but we'll have somebody that's full-time to do that work. And then we have more of the volunteer institutional members that are sitting on the governance board. We have the executive committee, and then we have the curators, right? So I'm just a curator, but I do volunteer my time to be the chair of the education committee. So, while we have, I think, some, hardline funding for like the director, the coordinator, that person that does the work to keep it going, a lot of it's also, as Wanda was saying, it's volunteers. It's us. Well, I mean, I have a percentage, of my time from Duke that my bosses, who are both in the room, support me spending that time, which is very helpful. But yeah, I think that has been something that there's been a lot of work done on, because scaling from 6 institutions that are all know each other well to 25 institutions is something that you do have to like put a lot of time and effort into planning.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we keep saying volunteer because we are not contracted, or we're not getting necessarily a stipend on the side. But all of these things that we produce, we're creating a community, and we can cite these on our CVs. They help towards promotion and continuous appointment. And so, like, even though that's why we talked about invisible labor a little bit, these things are working out, and we're getting better at our job. It's like I kind of feel like it's a built-in professional development in a way. Like, I have gotten so much out of the DCN in the last few years that it's really close to my heart, and I wanted to succeed. And that's why we're all in the DCN, is we all want it to succeed. It helps us. We are all learning from one another. We're distributing the work and expertise, and it's just really, really rad, everyone. It is so rad.
Just one other final thing I'll say is that, because I didn't say this, is that we did try to incentivize also, like we did provide stipends to the instructors, right? We couldn't do a lot, but that's again where grant funding can help. So we tried to give something back that's not just, yes, they're volunteers. We can't like pay them for all of their time that they put in, but we tried to give some incentives that are both professional development as well as like a small stipend and that that travel time. So, see. What did you do? Caca. Okay. We're over. Thank you all so much.